The gentlewoman from Wisconsin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I rise today to offer an amendment, along with my colleagues, Frederica Wilson from Florida and Danny Davis of Illinois. This amendment seeks to protect our most vulnerable students by ensuring that high-poverty schools are not adversely affected by provisions in H.R. 5 that propose changes in the funding allocation formula for teacher support and the quality of educational services under Title II of the No Child Left Behind Act. Now, Mr. Chair, if we don't adopt this amendment, we may inadvertently break a long bipartisan agreement on our fundamental need to ensure that our low-income students are not assigned less qualified teachers and less quality educational resources than their more advantaged peers. The reality is that in a school district that serves students in poverty, they face many, many hurdles and challenges in recruiting and retaining teachers as well as other quality and qualified staff. Now, current law prioritizes teacher development funding to states and schools serving the greatest concentrations of students in poverty. Specifically, the No Child Left Behind Title II formula for school districts focuses 65% of funds on students in poverty and 35% on numbers of students. That's students in poverty versus just numbers of students. The state formula focuses 80% of its funding on poverty and 20% on student population. H.R. 5 completely upends this, eliminates this critical prioritization by equally weighting poverty with mere student population, sort of cutting the baby in half, 50-50. This removes substantial federal support from schools and states serving the poor students and gives these funds to schools and states without similar levels of economic need. This, of course, Mr. Chair, has an impact on every single state in the union where there are disparate levels of income in our communities. It undermines teacher training and student achievement for students in poverty. My amendment simply would delay the implementation of this formula until the Secretary of Education certifies to Congress that students in poverty are not adversely affected by this change in service, quality, and at end level. This would provide the appropriate caution before eliminating that critical safeguard of funds for students in poverty. As written, we have strong reasons to fear that H.R. 5 would result in federal dollars being siphoned away from states and school districts with the poorest students and awarded to states with schools of higher states or school districts with higher affluence. In fact, Mr. Chair, data from the U.S. Department of Education released earlier this week show that H.R. 5 translates into billions of dollars of cuts in school districts serving high populations of Black and Hispanic students. Now, Mr. Chair, since all politics is local, I must decry the loss of these educational resources to the largest school district in my jurisdiction, and that's the Milwaukee Public School System. They would lose upwards to $160 million in federal funds for impoverished students over a 6-year period if we ratify H.R. 5 in its current form. Our Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, has called this kind of a reverse Robin Hood, stealing from the poor to give to the rich. And while we're discussing this, Mr. Chair, I just want to point one last thing out. This is budget neutral. This amendment doesn't add one dime to the cost of this bill. Its only intention is to protect the very teacher supports that help close the achievement gaps for low-income students. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this bill. How much time do I have?
Gentlewoman has 30 seconds remaining.
I reserve the balance of my